You could disappear and no one would miss you, Chloe said, glass raised. At the family barbecue, 5 harsh words from my daughter-in-law broke me. In tears. A family party became a nightmare, promising a hard lesson about boundaries, worth, and love. Laughter popped like grease on the grill, quick and careless. I held my plate steady and tasted metal, not smoke. The hydrangeas I brought sagged in the heat, blue heads drooping like tired witnesses. Somewhere inside, a drawer slid shut in my mind, and a key turned without a sound. Evan stood by the grill, flipping ribs with performative focus. He avoided my eyes, the way he has since decisions got easier than conversations. Our granddaughter Ava traced constellation lines on a school poster, asking if stars forget their names. Noah chased a frisbee and the dog, all elbows and hope. Chloe's bob caught sunlight like a blade. Her smile held, bright as an exit sign, daring me to see it. The patio furniture matched. The laughter matched. Nothing else did. "Mom, don't start," Evan said before I even opened my mouth. He has learned preemption, not listening. Chloe narrated the neighborhood like a podcast. Who was aging poorly? Who dared to learn to paint? Who traveled without grandchildren? "So selfish," she declared, polishing the stem of her glass with a napkin. I ran my thumb along a paper plate's crimped edge, counting ridges to stay present. The apple pie I baked cooled untouched beside a store cake, all frosting and message. The knife lay between them, waiting for someone to choose. When I finally spoke, my voice surprised me. "Kindness costs less than lessons," I said. It landed like a feather in a storm. Chloe laughed first, quick and rehearsed, and everyone cued behind it. Evan tried for a chuckle and produced a cough. Ava looked at me, then at her sneakers. Noah asked if dragons sweat. I put the pie knife down and rearranged forks no one needed. The sky had that cloudless party blue that always photographs well. Pictures can frame cruelty as candor. Captions make accomplices of strangers. The grill smoke braided itself with magnolia, sweet over char. I remembered the first time Evan scraped a knee on gravel, how the blood surprised both of us. He hated the sting of alcohol more than the pain. "Blow, Mom," he would include me. I pressed 2 fingers to my wrist where pulse proves presence. It tapped out, steady, like a metronome for courage. Ava slid me a sticker shaped like Saturn. I hid it in my palm. The toes came fast and tidy, Chloe's specialty. She thanked the weather, the house, and the vision for the kitchen remodel. "And to Marion, for always being available," she added, not looking at me. The word available curled in my ear like a leash. I thought of calendars with my handwriting filling their empty squares. I thought of holidays where I cooked while others arrived late and left early. I thought of names scratched off gifts that never arrived. The glass clink chorus concluded. Somewhere, a screen door banged in the breeze, then settled. "Speech, Mom," Evan urged, eyes willing me to be pleasant, easy, brief. I said thank you because I was trained to. I said the yard was beautiful because it was. I said the ribs smelled perfect because they did. No one asked what I needed. Needs from me were assumed. Needs for me were theoretical. A bee knows the frosting script on the store cake. I moved the apple pie closer to shade, the way you move a child out of sun. The knife winked again, patient and impartial. I turned the blade so it faced the fence. Chloe leaned in, perfumed and precise. "You barely leave that house. You'd vanish and the world would keep turning," she said, softer now, like intimacy. I heard the sales pitch under the sentence. A future where my orbit narrows into service and silence. Evan looked at his shoes. Tom checked a watch. The dog barked at nothing honest. I imagined the train schedule pinned by the kitchen phone in my old town, numbers arranged like exits. Foreshadowing is a polite word for a door that has always been unlocked. When the first candle sputtered, the wind rescued me. Smoke curled toward the street, a finger pointing outward. "Make a wish," Ava whispered. "Wishes are currency where you pay in doubt." I closed my eyes and saw an envelope, already stamped, already sealed, waiting in a desk I avoided. The flap stuck to my fingertip in my mind, like a small refusal. I opened my eyes in blue. Wax spattered a sugar letter. Applause arrived on schedule. Evan hugged with one arm, the other still holding tongs. I memorized the weight of that half embrace. Plates scraped, chairs nudged. People floated to the edges where gossip cools to comfortable temperature. Everything wants to keep what it's been given, I said, surprising us both. Chloe tucked hair behind one ear, the practiced move of a person who believes rehearsals are reality. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "Drama is just truth with better lighting." Somewhere in the house, a timer beeped and no one moved. Timers tell a story. Something is finished, and something else should begin. When goodbyes formed, they looked like errands, not gratitude. "Text when you get home," Evan said, eyes sliding past mine. "We need you Saturday," Chloe added, already scrolling. "Ava has shoes!" I hugged the children and the dog. I collected paper crowns fallen under chairs. I placed the knife in the sink and turned the blade face down. The hydrangeas had recovered a little in the cooler air, brave in their blue. On the drive home, the ribbon's loose thread tickled my wrist from my purse. The key in my head turned one more click. Final. That night, the cicadas pulsed like a clock too honest to lie. I stood in my kitchen and wrote a list with 3 columns. Keep, give, let go. The envelope on my desk waited, patient as a lighthouse. I slid in a single sentence and sealed it flat with my palm. Outside, headlights passed and kept going, uninterested in my address. Inside, the phone lit up with a message about leftovers. I turned the screen face down. Wishes are currency, but choices are cash. In the quiet, I counted out exact change. I lay in bed and replayed Chloe's sentence until it lost grammar and became a sound. Somewhere in the blur came a clearer voice, mine, older and kinder. It said this: "The world keeps turning anyway. You can choose where to stand." In that space, small and steady, I placed something that looked like a ticket and felt like a map. When sleep arrived, it brought the ocean. The tide went out, revealing what people drop when they hurry. I woke with the certainty of train tracks under steel. Morning would ask fewer questions than I did. By dawn, the house held its breath with me. Birds tested the air. The kettle clicked and hummed. I buttered toast and ate it standing, a ceremony of motion and decision. The suitcase unlatched easier than memory. Clothes folded into stacks that looked like neutrality. I touched certainty of a list with every box checked. Somewhere a drawer stayed closed at last. The memories I tried to bury clawed their way back that night, each one carrying the same flavor of dismissal. Every slight stacked neatly, like bricks building a wall I never agreed to. Years of being asked to show up, to cook, to babysit, to fill empty chairs, but rarely being invited as myself. I remembered the Christmas I bought puzzles and art kits for the kids, only to see them opened later with tags that read, "From Chloe and Evan." My handwriting was erased. Smiles in photos blurred my absence into decor. There was the summer trip to Florida, where I helped pay for the condo rental. They gave me the smallest room, windowless, damp, tucked behind the laundry, and still expected me to rise early to fry bacon for 12. Laughter drifted back from the beach while I folded towels and scraped sand off plates. Chloe's voice carried light and sharp. "It's tradition. Mom loves it." My silence agreed, because back then, silence felt easier than truth. Every plate I washed, every meal I plated confirmed their story, that usefulness equaled love and sacrifice equaled belonging. Once, Evan dropped the children with me on a Sunday morning with no notice, saying Chloe had a migraine. They returned hours later from a shopping spree, bags swinging from manicured hands. Chloe thanked me with that tight smile that cut like a seam ripper. "You're a lifesaver." Ava pressed a sticker into my palm that day too, a tiny star. Even at 10, she noticed how invisible I was becoming. The stickers collected in my purse like secret medals for endurance. Their glue held tighter than any words Chloe ever offered. Evan had been my shadow once, a boy with scraped knees and cereal milk mustaches. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college, nodding through exhaustion as he studied late. Back then, I believed sacrifice would plant loyalty in him like a tree, but adulthood had rewritten our bond. He looked past me now, repeating Chloe's assessments with ease. "Mom, don't take it personally," he would say, a reflex. not a plea. The word personally stung more than any insult. My entire life had been personal. Every sacrifice, every meal, every unpaid debt. Errands completed. Just for existing. My mind flipped through decades like pages, stopping at blank spaces. I wondered if Robert, my late husband, had sensed this trajectory before his heart gave out. In his final months, he had squeezed my hand often, but rarely spoken. I imagined he knew silence wasn't safety. It was surrender. His absence had left me outnumbered, and Chloe had seized that arithmetic. Her equation, my invisibility plus her dominance, equaled control. But there were fractures, small signs. Ava's hesitation at the barbecue, her glance at me before burying her nose in her project, the way Noah clung to my leg during arguments, as if he felt the current shifting. Children notice truths adults conceal. Perhaps Chloe's effort to erase me hadn't reached them fully. A sticker in my palm, a whispered wish for cookies, a question about dragons. These were fragments of recognition. They whispered, "You still matter." It was faint, but enough. Enough to prove Chloe hadn't succeeded completely. Not yet. That night, lying awake, I replayed the laughter. It echoed like glass breaking, each chuckle a shard. I pictured Evan joining in, half-hearted but present. I pictured the grandchildren, forced smiles hiding confusion. My chest tightened, not with grief but with clarity. It wasn't just Chloe's cruelty. It was Evan's complicity. That realization sliced sharper than any insult. The boy I raised, who once begged me to blow on scraped knees, had let someone else decide I was disposable. The betrayal stung deeper because it wore his familiar face. I thought about the house, the one filled with Robert's watch, my mother's pearls, the quilt my grandmother made, a house where I had prepared thousands of meals, bandaged small wounds, read bedtime stories. It had become a storage unit for expectations, not a home. I walked through each room in my memory, asking, do I own this space, or does it own me? The answer was suffocating. Chloe's laughter echoed off the walls. Evan's dismissals seeped into the furniture. Even the photo frames seemed to shrink me. I realized if I stayed, I would disappear long before I died. The foreshadowing was for everyone but myself. The dining room, with its polished table that had borne countless feasts, felt less like a place of gathering and more like a stage where I had played the same part too long. The kitchen still smelled faintly of apple pie, but it tasted of dismissal. That night, I folded a red dress I'd once been mocked for wearing and set it aside, not for storage, but for departure. The next morning, I called Ruth, the attorney who had guided me when Robert died. Her voice, calm and deliberate, carried reassurance I hadn't known I still craved. "Are you ready?" she asked gently. My answer surprised me with its steadiness. Yes! Within an hour, I had an appointment to discuss selling the house, and by afternoon, I contacted a realtor. The phone, that device always filled with requests from Evan or Chloe, now became my lifeline to freedom. For once, every call I made was for me, not for them. That shift was seismic. Sorting through possessions became an act of reckoning. What did I truly want to carry forward? Robert's watch, worn smooth by his years of devotion. My mother's pearls, each bead a memory of family roots deeper than Chloe could ever comprehend. The quilt, sewn by my grandmother, stitches holding generations of endurance. These went into my suitcase, not as baggage, but as anchors. The rest? China sets for holidays that felt more like labor camps, crystal glasses Chloe once sneered at, furniture chosen for gatherings where I was invisible, stayed behind. They belonged to the life I was leaving. Clothes carried stories too. The red dress, bold and unapologetic, had been mocked by Chloe as desperate for your age. Folding it carefully into my bag, I decided it would travel with me as a declaration. A blue cardigan, Robert's favorite, went in next. My gardening gloves stayed. I realized my hands had worked long enough for others. they now deserved rest and paintbrushes, maybe even seashells. Every object became a choice: keep for me or discard for them. By the end of the day, 2 suitcases stood by the door, 40 years condensed into essentials of self. Neighbors waved as I carried boxes to the curb. Mrs. Boyd asked casually, "Big cleaning project?" I smiled, a secret blooming inside me. Not cleaning, clearing. Clearing space for a self. Memories, I corrected. But the walls no longer hold them kindly. She nodded, sliding documents across the table. Signing my name felt like unlocking a cage. Each stroke of ink freed me from a lifetime's contract written without my consent. My hand trembled, not with fear, but with release. As the days passed, I began to imagine a different life. A small cottage near water, mornings free of demands, afternoons filled with books or art, friends who saw me as Marian, not as mom or grandma, roles that had been reduced to servitude. The vision expanded each night, filling the silence once clogged with requests from Evan and Chloe. I realized silence could be sanctuary. Each dawn, the house grew emptier, and I grew fuller. For the first time in decades, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was afraid of staying. The final night in that house, I walked barefoot across every room. The living room where Evan had taken his first steps. The hallway where I had measured his height against the doorframe. The kitchen counter stained with years of hurried breakfasts. Instead of grief, I felt gratitude. Gratitude that these walls had held me until I could hold myself. I whispered goodbye to Robert's memory, not as a plea, but as a promise. I would not let his widow disappear the way Chloe claimed she could. I would carry both of us forward, visible again. At dawn, a taxi idled outside. My suitcases, lined neatly by the door, seemed lighter than they should. I carried them out, closed the door gently behind me, and left the keys on the table. 3 envelopes waited beside them. One sentence in the grandchildren's note repeated in my mind: "I love you more than they let you see." That was enough. The driver asked where I was headed. "Clearwater," I replied, surprising even myself with the certainty. The name tasted like freedom, like salt air, like a beginning. As we drove away, I looked back only once. The hydrangeas in the front garden had bloomed overnight, stubbornly beautiful, defiantly blue. Chloe would never know how to care for them. Not really. That was fine. They no longer belonged to her world. Neither did I. My reflection: Marianne, a woman alone but unbroken. I rented a small cottage 2 blocks from the water. White shutters peeling, porch swing squeaking, hibiscus crowding the fence. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. The realtor, a cheerful woman named Denise, handed me the keys with a grin. "It has good bones," she said. To me, it had something more important: silence that belonged to me alone. That night, I unpacked slowly, placing Robert's watch on the nightstand, draping my grandmother's quilt across the bed, setting the red dress in the closet where no one could sneer at it. I opened the window, and the sea sang me to sleep. Days in Clearwater unfolded gently. Mornings began with walks along the shore, the sand cool under my feet, gulls wheeling overhead. Afternoons belonged to books I had always meant to read. Evenings, I sat on the porch swing, watching sunsets bleed pink and gold into the horizon. The rhythm of solitude was steady, healing. Neighbors nodded politely, and some stopped to chat. One, a widower named Henry, passed each morning with his golden retriever, offering a smile that lingered. Another, Marge from the bookstore, invited me to her card group. Slowly, I found companionship not rooted in obligation, but in choice. There were moments when guilt tried to claw back in. My phone, turned off since the train ride, sat like a stone on the bedside table. Some nights I stared at it, imagining missed calls, unanswered texts. But each time I reached for it, I stopped. Not yet. That silence wasn't punishment, it was preservation. I wasn't ready to hear Evan's anger or Chloe's accusations. I wasn't ready to be pulled back into a life where my worth was measured in casseroles and babysitting hours. For now, I allowed myself to heal in the quiet. And the quiet, surprisingly, didn't hurt. One afternoon, Marge persuaded me to join a watercolor class. I haven't painted since high school, I protested. She laughed, handing me a brush. That's the point. My hand trembled as I drew the first stroke, but by the end of class, I had painted a clumsy but bright seashell. The instructor praised richer than any inheritance Chloe had craved. 3 months passed. My skin browned in the sun, my hair grew lighter, my laughter freer. I looked in the mirror and saw someone unfamiliar yet welcome. A woman not diminished, but expanded. Still, the past lingered in shadows. Sometimes I dreamed of the barbecue, of Chloe's laughter ringing like glass shattering. I woke shaking, clutching the quilt. Yet each morning, the sea washed away the residue of those dreams. Every wave seemed to whisper, "You are here. You are whole. You are yours." The tide kept its rhythm, and slowly, my heart learned a new one. Then came the Tuesday that shifted everything. I was painting at the community center when Gloria, a friend from class, tapped my shoulder. "Marion, there's a woman outside asking for you, says she's an attorney." My heart stumbled. Ruth. We had arranged this meeting months ago, but now that the moment had arrived, I felt both dread and relief. Outside, Ruth waited in a neat suit, incongruous against the beach town backdrop. Her smile was wide, but her briefcase looked heavy. She embraced me. "You look younger," she said softly. "Ready?" My pulse raced. I nodded. At a cafe by the harbor, Ruth spread out documents. "The house sold above asking price," she explained, sliding a paper toward me. The figure stunned me, more than I had dared to hope. Enough to buy the cottage outright. Enough to start anew without fear. Then she placed another document before me. The trust for Ava and Noah, structured with care, designed to protect them from Chloe's control, ensuring they would only access it with respect and kindness. Tears pricked my eyes. For once, my legacy wasn't servitude. It was love, safeguarded. Ruth closed the briefcase with finality. "Now," she said, "you must decide when to turn your phone back on." That night, I sat on the porch with the phone in my hand. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and possibility. I pressed the button. The screen lit like an alarm, buzzing furiously. Over 100 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, hundreds of texts. Evan's voice echoed from the oldest message. "Mom, where are you?" Then Chloe's, furious. "Ridiculous! Call me!" The words grew more frantic, more venomous, like snakes striking against glass. But then came Ava's voice, small, uncertain, piercing through the noise. "Grandma, are you okay? Dad's mad, and Mom keeps crying. I miss your cookies. Are you coming back?" That single voicemail landed heavier than all the others. For months, I had lived in freedom, certain they would never truly miss me. Chloe's laughter at the barbecue had promised as much. Yet here was Ava, breaking through with a thread of love I could not ignore. I pressed the phone to my chest, as if I could absorb her words into my heart. Ruth's warning echoed in my mind. "They are not in a reasonable state," she had said at the cafe. She was right. The messages revealed a pattern: anger, entitlement, panic. Chloe's fury erupted in long voicemails. "You can't just sell the house without us. That's family property." Her voice cracked with rage when she mentioned the trust. "How dare you set conditions for money that belongs to us?" Evan's voice was worse, simmering with betrayal. "You've lost your mind, Mom. We had plans for that house." Not once did either ask about my health, my safety, My happiness. The realization cut deep. Their concern wasn't for me, but for what I represented. Free labor, future inheritance, a pawn on their chessboard of control. The voicemails confirmed what I had long suspected but refused to admit. I was never family to Chloe. To her, I was an asset, a convenient servant. Evan, blinded by loyalty or fear, had followed her lead. Together, they built a world where my existence was conditional. And now that I had stepped out of it, they couldn't comprehend my autonomy. Their panic wasn't about losing me. It was about losing power. Yet I couldn't ignore Ava's voice. That innocence. That longing. I miss your cookies. It wasn't just about food. It was about comfort, love, presence. She still remembered me, not as a resource, but as a grandmother. That single voicemail cracked the armor I had built in Clearwater. Afternoon, I painted at the community center, brush trembling in my hand. The seashell I had once painted looked back at me from the canvas. Imperfect, but defiant. Around me, laughter and chatter carried on. For a moment, I felt almost normal. But Chloe's voice invaded again, shrill, angry. We had plans for that house! I pressed the brush harder, paint smearing too thick. My hand shook. Gloria, the friend beside me, touched my wrist. Are you all right? I forced a smile. Just painting something heavy. She nodded as if she understood. Maybe she did. That night, I scrolled through more texts. One from Evan struck me cold. You've always been selfish, Mom. Never thinking of us. Selfish. The word hissed in my ears. After decades of sacrifice, of sleepless nights, of double shifts to pay his tuition, of abandoned dreams for his sake. Selfish? I nearly dropped the phone. The irony burned. Almost laughable if it hadn't cut so deep. I whispered to the empty room. Selfishness is finally saving me. The cottage echoed the words back, not as accusation, but as affirmation. For once, selfishness meant survival. Still, fear coiled in me. If Evan could twist my story into selfishness, what else could Chloe plant in his mind? She had already hidden cards and gifts from Ava and Noah, convincing them I had forgotten. What other lies had she seeded? My chest tightened at the thought. This wasn't just about property or money. It was about rewriting me out of their lives. Erasing me from memory the way she had erased my handwriting from gifts. I couldn't allow that any longer. Not for Ava, not for Noah, and not for myself. As the sun sank, I stood on the porch with the phone in my hand, ocean breeze tugging at my hair. The screen glowed again, Evan's number flashing. I didn't answer. Not yet. But I knew the confrontation was coming. The storm had reached Clearwater. Soon I would face Evan, face Chloe, face the truth. The question that lingered, sharp as a knife. Would my son finally see me? Or had Chloe already blinded him beyond repair? The call finally came on a quiet evening when the sky over Clearwater was painted in lavender. Everyone laughed, including you. I could hear his breath catch, then steady again.
That was a joke, Mom. You know Chloe doesn't mean half the things she says.
I closed my eyes, tasting the bitterness of years. Actually, I think it was the truest thing she's ever said to me. His tone shifted, sharper now.
You sold the house without even telling us. That was our family home. We had plans.
His words faltered, then stopped short. Plans for what, Evan? Renovations after I died? Or after you put me in a nursing home? His silence was louder than his anger. I pressed on, unwilling to retreat. It was my name on the deed, my mortgage for 40 years. I built that home. I had every right to leave it behind. He exhaled sharply, the sound of a man grasping for control and finding none. Then came the accusation that pierced deeper than any blade.
This isn't like you. You've never been selfish before. I flinched, though I refused to let him hear it. Selfish. The word that had haunted me for weeks. After decades of sacrifice, of bending myself until I disappeared, my one act of self-preservation was painted as selfish. If protecting myself is selfish, then maybe I should have been selfish a long time ago, I said quietly. He didn't respond. The silence crackled with disbelief. Somewhere beyond it, I sensed the boy he used to be, confused, searching for the mother he had lost long before this call. Mom, he said finally, voice lower now. We need to talk, in person. I agreed, but on one condition. You come alone, without Chloe. He bristled. She's my wife. We're a package deal. Not this time, I said firmly. If you want to understand why I left, you'll come by yourself. He argued, pleaded, tried to negotiate, but I held the line, stronger than I expected. After a long silence, he gave in. Fine. 3 days from now. A cafe by the harbor. Noon. My heart pounded, but I kept my tone calm. I'll be there. The next 3 days were a blur of restless nights and anxious mornings. I prepared myself the way I had once prepared, disheveled, as if sleep had abandoned him. Relief flickered across his face when he saw me, quickly replaced by resentment. He slid into the chair opposite. You look different. I am different, I said simply. He studied me, his gaze lingering on my shorter hair, the scarf I wore, the calm he wasn't used to seeing in me. For a moment, he looked like the boy I remembered, uncertain and vulnerable. Mom, you need to come back. The kids miss you. I met his eyes. Do they miss me? Or does Chloe miss her babysitter? His jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? I leaned forward. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for something, not to assign me a task, just to see how I was. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I slid my phone across the table. Check the photos. Every gift, every card I've sent the children these past 5 years. Ask Ava if she ever got the watercolor set I sent. Ask Noah about the science kit last Christmas. Chloe has been intercepting them, telling you I forgot, telling them I didn't care. Evan's face shifted from disbelief to confusion, then to something more fragile, doubt. His hand shook slightly as he set the phone down. Why would she do that? I met his gaze steadily. Because I was competition. Because she needed me erased to secure her hold. The cafe noise blurred around us. Dishes clinking, conversations rising and falling. Evan sat back, running a hand over his face. For the first time in years, I saw cracks in his certainty. He whispered, I should have seen it. My heart twisted. Yes, I said softly. You should have. He looked at me then. Really looked. As if seeing me not as a tool, not as a problem, but as his mother. The boy I had raised flickered in his eyes, mingling with the man who had betrayed me. The silence between us held more weight than words. Finally, he asked, voice hoarse, What do you want, Mom? The answer came with clarity I hadn't expected. I want to be seen, not as a servant, not as an inheritance, as a person who matters. Soon find my door. I didn't have to wait long for the storm. 3 days later, gravel crunched under tires outside my cottage. I looked up from the roses I was pruning to see a silver SUV pull up hard against the curb. Chloe stepped out, designer sunglasses shielding her eyes, posture rigid as if the air itself had offended her. She paused at the gate, scanning my little home with disdain. Charming, she said flatly, voice honeyed with venom. I set my gloves down, the shears still in my hand. Hello, Chloe. Her smile widened, but never touched her eyes. You've been busy, she remarked, striding into my garden without invitation. Her gaze swept the porch swing, the potted herbs, the cheerful paint on the shutters.
I suppose this is what you traded your family for. Her words carried accusation, sharp enough to cut. I motioned toward the porch. Would you like some iced tea? The offer was ritual, a shield against escalation. She didn't answer, but followed me inside, heels striking my floor as if to claim it. I poured 2 glasses, placing one before her. She didn't touch it. She was here for war, not refreshment. The children miss you, she began, folding her manicured hands. You've been incredibly selfish, disappearing like this. I studied her face. Her composure was porcelain, but the crack in her voice betrayed something else. Fear. That's interesting, I said slowly. Because I know what you've been doing. Hiding my gifts, returning the things I bought, telling them I forgot birthdays. A flicker, barely there, crossed her expression. Then she smoothed it away. James shouldn't believe everything you say just because you're his mother. She leaned forward. You've clearly been planning this betrayal for some time. I almost laughed at the word. Betrayal? After years of being used and dismissed, I finally stand up for myself, and you call it betrayal? Her mask slipped further. We gave you purpose, she spat. Before us, what did you have? A dead husband, a garden club, and empty evenings. The cruelty in her tone echoed the barbecue, the same blade disguised as wit. I felt the sting, but stood firm. No, Chloe, you needed me. To cook your meals, to raise your children, to be the scapegoat.
Tactic, voice low, urgent. Those conditions on the trust are ridiculous. The children shouldn't have to jump through hoops for what should be theirs. Theirs, I corrected, not yours. Her composure shattered, the truth slipping out. James and I had plans. Good schools, renovations, the right opportunities. You've ruined everything. I leaned back, unshaken. No, I protected everything. My legacy goes directly to the children. You can't touch it. Rage trembled in her hands, barely contained. We'll challenge it. Your competence won't hold up. I smiled thinly. Ruth anticipated that. My evaluations are ironclad. She stood abruptly, tea untouched, purse clutched like a weapon. James will never forgive you. I rose too, steady, taller than I felt. Perhaps, but I'm learning to forgive myself for allowing this for so long. Her eyes burned with hatred, but under it I saw something else. Desperation. She had gambled on my silence, and I had broken it. She turned sharply, heels striking the floor like gunshots. At the door, she flung one last barb. This isn't over. I met her gaze calmly. For your sake, Chloe, I hope it is. Through the window, I watched her sit in the SUV, fingers flying over her phone before she sped away. My heart pounded, but I felt no fear. Relief, yes. Triumph, maybe. For the first time, I had faced Chloe without flinching. The roses outside swayed in the breeze, heads lifted toward the sun. I returned to them, pruning calmly, as if to remind myself, storms pass and gardens grow again. Still, I knew her visit was only the beginning. She would not surrender easily. The question pressed at me like a shadow. What damage would she try next? The call came just an hour after Chloe stormed away from my cottage. My phone buzzed with Evan's name, and I braced myself. His voice was tight, stripped of its usual confidence. She went to see you, he said, not asking but knowing. Yes, I answered. A heavy silence hung before he spoke again. Mom, I found them. The cards, the gift. After a pause, is that still all right? My heart leapt. Of course, I replied without hesitation. He hesitated. Sarah won't be joining us. The air shifted. His voice carried not anger now, but exhaustion. I could hear it. The collapse of trust. The fracture of a marriage once built on illusions. Chloe's mask had slipped, and Evan had seen too much to unsee.
Still, I knew scars ran deep, and one discovery couldn't undo years of manipulation. Yet for the first time in decades, hope threaded through his words. Friday arrived bright, the sky impossibly blue. I rose early, nerves alive beneath my skin. I baked Ava's favorite cookies, their scent filling the cottage with warmth. I set up the telescope Noah had once whispered about, arranging it carefully by the porch. I fluffed pillows in the guest room, smoothing sheets with trembling hands. Every preparation felt like a prayer. Let them feel safe. Let them remember love. My hands shook, not from age, but from anticipation. Would they come to me with anger, with doubt, or with open arms? I braced for all of it. The car pulled up in the afternoon. My heart thundered as Ava stepped out first, taller now. Her face caught between childhood and adolescence. She froze for a moment, uncertainty flickering. Then our eyes met, and she ran, arms flung wide, collapsing against me in a sob. "Grandma, we thought you didn't want us anymore." Her words broke me open, tears spilling freely as I held her tight. Noah followed, slower, his small body stiff with bravado. But when I opened my other arm, he folded into me, whispering, "Why did you leave without saying goodbye?" I kissed the tops of their heads, breathing in the scent of childhood, grass, sunscreen, innocence. Over their shoulders, I saw Evan standing by the car, watching with a face etched in conflict, guilt, relief, and something like respect shadowed his eyes. For once, he didn't rush forward to control the moment. He let it unfold, raw and unpolished.
Enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, my bond with Ava and Noah could survive the lies. Enough to hope that Evan, blinded for so long, might learn to see me again. Yet beneath the relief lay a warning. Chloe would not surrender. Her fury had teeth, and she had lost her grip on both husband and children. That loss would drive her to strike again. I could feel it coming like thunder on the horizon. The peace of that weekend felt almost too fragile, like porcelain balanced on the edge of a table. Ava and Noah filled the cottage with laughter, their voices echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Evan lingered, tentative but present, joining us for meals and even smiling once or twice. I allowed myself a flicker of hope, but beneath the warmth, I knew Chloe's silence was dangerous. She hadn't called, hadn't texted since Evan discovered the hidden cards. That kind of quiet from her was never surrender. It was strategy. The knock came on Sunday evening, sharp and impatient. I opened the door to find Chloe standing there, immaculate as always, her hair sleek, her posture rigid. Her eyes slid past me to the children inside. "Ava, Noah," she said crisply, "get your things. We're leaving." The children froze, caught between fear and loyalty. "Mom," Ava whispered, "we're supposed to stay." Chloe's lips thinned. Plans change. She took a step forward, but I blocked the doorway. My voice was steady. "They're not going anywhere, Chloe. The schedule was set by the court. You know that." Her expression hardened. False sweetness gone. "You've always meddled," she hissed. "This is exactly why we're here. You turned Evan against me, poisoned my children." I held my ground. "They're not possessions to be claimed. They're people. And right now, they're staying with their father and grandmother." Behind me, I heard Noah's voice tremble. "Please, Mom, we just got here." Chloe's face contorted. "After everything I've done for you both, you repay me by choosing her?" Her rage was naked now, no disguise. I sent the children to the back porch,
their wide eyes lingering on me as they slipped away. The house was sharp, but his gaze held accusation only for Chloe. She straightened. I came to get my children. Our children, he corrected, his voice steel. And they're staying here, as agreed. Chloe's mouth opened, then shut again. For the first time, I saw her hesitate in front of him. Evan turned to me, softening. Mom, take the kids inside. I nodded, guiding Ava and Noah back into the safety of the cottage. Through the window, I watched them. Their voices were muffled, but the tension was clear in the set of their shoulders. The way Chloe gestured sharply, Evan shaking his head. At one point, she pointed toward the cottage, her face twisted with fury. Evan didn't flinch. Finally, Chloe spun on her heel, storming to her car. The door slammed, the engine roared, and she sped away, taillights disappearing into the dark. Evan remained in the driveway for a long moment before coming inside. His face was pale, drained, but resolute. She's not going to stop, he said quietly. I poured him a glass of water, my hands steady, even as my heart pounded. Then we prepare, I replied. He looked at me, something like respect, mingling with fear in his eyes. She's talking about custody battles, about taking everything from me. His voice broke. And from you. I touched his hand. She can't take what isn't hers. He closed his eyes, nodding. For the first time, he seemed to understand the depth of what Chloe had done, not just to me, but to him, to his children. The fight ahead would be brutal, but at least, this time, he wasn't blind. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone on the porch. The ocean whispered in the distance, the scent of salt and jasmine thick in the air. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind churned. Chloe would not rest. She had lost control, and people like her didn't surrender. They retaliated. I knew storms. I had lived through them, but this one was different. It would strike at the fragile reconciliation I had only just begun with my son and grandchildren. For the first time, I feared not for myself, but for what they might lose if she succeeded. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, holding on to the sound of Ava and Noah's soft laughter drifting through the cottage. They like waves. I looked around and felt something unfamiliar yet steady. Peace. The woman who had nodded silently when told she would not be missed was gone. In her place was someone visible, rooted, alive. The garden outside had flourished under my hands, roses blooming where there had once been only weeds. Ava had drawn me a card, a watercolor of the cottage with a sign that read, Eleanor's Studio. Noah proudly announced he had helped bake the cake, though the lopsided layers suggested otherwise. Evan sat quietly, watching, his expression soft with gratitude and regret. He hadn't spoken of Chloe much since the separation papers were filed. The children lived mostly with him now, their visits to me no longer dependent on anyone's permission. The wounds of betrayal still ached, but healing had begun. After dinner, we carried dessert to the porch. The ocean stretched dark and endless, waves rolling steady against the shore. Ava leaned against me, whispering, Grandma, you're happier here. I can tell. I smiled, brushing her hair from her face. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Evan cleared his throat, his voice low. Mom, I need to say this. I failed you for years. I let her convince me you were someone you weren't, but I see you now. I don't know if that's enough. I placed my hand over his. It's a start, Evan. Sometimes starting over is enough. Later, when the children were asleep, Evan and I sat with glasses of wine. The night air was sweet with jasmine, the stars sharp against the black sky. He looked at me, tears glistening. When Chloe said no one would miss you, she was wrong. I missed you. I just didn't realize how much until you were gone. His words trembled, but they were real. I squeezed his hand gently. Sometimes people need to disappear before others can truly see them. Silence settled between us, not heavy this time, but gentle, like a blanket. For the first time in decades, I felt seen. The next morning, I walked the shore at sunrise. Henry, the widower with the golden retriever, waved from a distance. Life had become wider, fuller than I had imagined. I had joined an art class, taken part in a theater group, even dared to laugh like a younger woman again. None of this erased the years of invisibility, but it gave them meaning. They had taught me their eyes. When I returned to the cottage, Ava was already awake, sketchbook in hand. She showed me a new drawing, a small building labeled Art Studio, filled with light and people painting together. Maybe you could teach classes, she said eagerly. I could help in the summers. My throat tightened with emotion. Out of the ashes of loss, she saw a future I had not dared to imagine. I hugged her tightly. Maybe I will, I whispered. For the first time in years, I wasn't living someone else's story. I was writing my own. The journey hadn't been about revenge, though Chloe had seen it that way. It wasn't even about Evan, though I longed for his recognition. It was about me, the girl I had once been, the woman I had silenced for decades, the self I had finally welcomed back. Standing in my garden, the sun warming my face, I felt whole. The children's laughter drifted through the window. Evan's voice joined theirs, steady and light. This was my inheritance, not possessions, not grudges, but presence. I had finally claimed it. And now to you, listening to my story. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Your sacrifices blurred into the background. What would it take for you to step forward, to be seen again? Life has a way of erasing those who stay silent too long, but it also offers the courage to rewrite the ending. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories may help someone else find their voice. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel if these stories resonate with you. We'll meet again soon with another reminder that family can wound, but it can also heal when truth finally takes root.